Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Startup Operators Weekly Roundup. Now, the last week has been especially great for India as we get our 100th unicorn, and along with that, Swiggy has started the first drone delivery services in the country. Wakefit, on the other hand, is rooting for employees to take a power nap at work with the introduction of its right to nap policies. And Dipinder Goyal donates 700 crore rupees from its ESOP sales from Zomato's IPO to help with delivery partners' kids' education. More on that coming up in this week's episode of the weekly roundup. But before we get started, if it's the first time you're joining us, don't forget to hit the like button and let us know how you're doing in the comment section below. And please share this episode with your operator friends should you like it. Roshan, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
Yeah, the week's been good, and there was a lot of doom and gloom on Twitter, etc. Right? I mean, obviously the RBI has hiked rates, the Fed has hiked rates, and Bank of England has hiked rates, and so there's a lot of stock market panic. Last week, around 12 lakh crores was wiped off the Indian stock market, right? And a lot of VCs have been saying that tough times are going to come up and so on and so forth as well. We will discuss some of the sagely advice that David Sachs had later during the podcast. But yeah, I mean, market cycles are externalities. As I keep saying, oftentimes there's precious little that one can do about these things, right? As a founder, you obviously had to focus on your business, reduce your churn, reduce your burn rate, and really focus on your customers as much as possible. That's really what you have to do. And I also feel that some of this, not all, but some of this is very exaggerated as well, because the amount of VC money that's coming into India is like really peanuts compared to even the total VC money that's spent in the world, invested in the world, right? And we still have a long way off. So yeah, I mean, reason for caution, yes, but reason not for panic, I would say, right? So yeah, interesting week.
Yep, and of course, my favorite bit from the news was Swiggy beginning its drone delivery service, and they're piloting this in regions in Delhi, NCR, and Bangalore. And as much as I would have enjoyed, to see drones coming towards my apartment to deliver my groceries, this is going to be used to optimize its delivery services. They'll be used to replenish inventory between, the seller-run dark stores and a common customer point, and from this common customer point, a delivery partner will pick up orders and then deliver it to the customer. For this pilot project, Swiggy has roped in four drone companies, one of them being Garuda Aerospace, who will be handling Bangalore, while Sky Air Mobility will take the Delhi NCR in the first phase. Andhra Tech Eagle Consortia and Maruth Drone Tech will come in second. What's interesting to note here is Garuda Aerospace is India's most valuable drone startup, with plans to manufacture 1 lakh indigenous made in India drones by 2024. And of course, we have seen the government also making it very easier for innovations to happen in the drone space with the new Drone Act, which we had discussed a couple of months back. So, what do you make of this?
This is fantastic stuff. I mean, Amazon has been doing drone deliveries for a while in the US anyway, right? And this was bound to happen, because, logistics costs in India, transport costs in India are, sky high, perhaps the highest in the world, I would say, right? Because our infrastructure is not really great. And also considering that, profitability is a key concern for Swiggy, right? And they have to narrow down their losses and everything. They will look at many multiple different ways of shaving off whatever they can from the bottom line, right? So it's definitely going to be effective. We also spoke about the new drone policy that was introduced in 2021 when we spoke to Vipul of Unmanned Systems, right? So, and we spoke about the many different use cases and so on and so forth. Again, I feel like the drone policy is a game changer. There's been a lot of simplification in terms of applying for licenses, or even they have something like APIs where you can track no-fly zones and so on and so forth. There's really plenty of opportunities on that front. And while earlier, I mean, people used to look at drones as sort of a hindrance, and you would think about banning drones and so on. I mean, now you kind of think of it as an opportunity, right? And I really feel for a country that is as vast as India and as complex as India, I think drone delivery will be. I think in about 5 years' time, I'll stick my neck out and say that in the next 5 years' time, we'll see this as something regular that would happen. And on another note, right? I mean, India's policy language is so technology rich. Balaji Srinivasan had once pointed out, especially our union budget and so on. The number of times things like APIs were mentioned, drones were mentioned, blockchain was mentioned, right? I mean, so that's just reflects a very sort of a new age mindset that is required for policy making in this era, I would say.
So now, for a first in the Indian startup ecosystem, we have this company Wakefit that recently announced a right to nap policy for its employees in the afternoon between 2 to 2:30 p.m. during work hours. And calendars for these employees will also be blocked for this duration so that no one is able to schedule a meeting with people. And but this is not the first time that Wakefit has come, has received a lot of light in the media because of such policies. But a couple of years back, they rolled out internship programs awarding participants on completion of stipulated deep sleep duration for 100 days. So isn't like that the fantasy we all have to like get paid for sleeping?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting, and they've got a ton of press about this also, right? Everyone seems to be talking about it, and it ties with their brand ethos also. So, yeah, I mean, while the policy may be sincere, it's also a fantastic marketing initiative. Japanese, companies used to have this sort of a policy, right? I mean, they would have nap time post lunch for most of their employees and so on. And Google had these sleeping pods or sleep pods as such, right? So it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, especially now, I think people kind of recognize that, the lines between work and life are kind of blurring. Personal and professional is blurring, and schedules tend to bleed. So I think these kind of initiatives are really helpful in terms of carving out boundaries, right? So from that perspective, I think it's a good initiative. And yeah, I mean, props to their marketing team as well. They've sold this idea really well.
So last week, Zomato's founder and CEO Dipinder Goyal has donated about 700 crore rupees, that roughly comes to like $90 million, or the entire proceeds he received from monetizing a portion of his ESOPs towards education of children of delivery partners. This new foundation will provide 50,000 per annual per child on education of up to two children of all delivery partners who have been on the fleet for more than 5 years, and 1 lakh per annum if the partner has completed 10 years with the company. As mentioned, this was the amount that was raised by Goyal when he vested a portion of his ESOPs granted to him right before the company went public in July 2021. It's really interesting here because last week we discussed about Swiggy having a similar initiative for, for its fleet executives, and right now we have Zomato. Do you think this is more happening because of all the flack which, companies operating in the gig economy space has been receiving? At times you've spoken about, the protests which workers from the urban company have been raising.
No, I think definitely. I mean, people are cognizant of that, right? I think it's a very, very good initiative. The likes of Swiggy, Zomato, Urban Company, all of these folks kind of recognize that they have to embed their partners deeply in their ecosystem, right? All of these folks are facing shortages in terms of candidates and so on. They have to provide these value added services, whether it's financial support, whether it's insurance, and other initiatives. Deepinder is one of the legendary founders in the Indian startup ecosystem. He's always been someone who's very innovative on these fronts, and it's a really nice initiative, and especially, I mean, I like that, companies are being proactive about this. Like, if you look at how things have panned out for Uber in the US, right, with a lot of regulation and so on, right? You don't want such things happening in India, right? Although, I mean, that's eventual, and there will be some sort of a recognition of this new form of employment, right, with gig working and so on, and there will be regulation pertaining to that. But I really like that, people are being proactive and trying to help these partners, because I think they're key to their business, and helping them through these kind of initiatives is really, really good.
So after a long lull time, Delivery on Thursday announced its 5,235 crore IPO, which will open for subscription from May 11th and close on May 13th. But the size of this IPO has been cut to 5,235 crores from 7,460 crores that was planned earlier. And even the price band has been set from 462 to 487 rupees a share. But multiple factors such as global and domestic markets volatility because of the Russia-Ukraine war, tech stocks have been taking a beating globally, and of course, the lesser spoken about Paytm IPO, the better. But right now, after such waiting for such a long time, the RBI has raised the BPS rates by 40 points. I'm sure this will also have some effects with this whole IPO. I mean, we are seeing the likes of Mobiquick and Pharmacy still have deciding to wait it out, but maybe in the soon we'll see the public market sentiments improve.
Yeah, certainly not the most optimal time to list, right? And that's been the case, since the Paytm listing. I think Paytm kind of sullied the markets for all new tech IPOs, right? This week we had LIC, for example, listing, and that was also not kind of a rousing reception as one would have hoped, right? I mean, people have been a lot more optimistic 6 7 months back. They aren't right now. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put delivery in the same category as, let's say, a Farmeasy, right? Or even an Oyo or someone, because I think deliveries losses are a lot less, right? I think they probably around 200 250 crores of loss is what they're making. Very very sound business. We've spoken about how delivery is the classic case of building shovels in a gold rush, right? With e-commerce, with D2C, with all of this happening. I mean, delivery is a lot more integral to sort of provide this whole plug and play infrastructure for some of these companies to function. So yeah, it's interesting that they've decided to go ahead, and I really hope that I mean they have a good outcome.
So another major milestone that we achieved last week was India getting its 100th unicorn. This was neobanking platform Open, who raised a $50 million Series D round led by IIFL. Investors like Temasek, Tiger Global, and 314 Capital participated in this round. Now, Open claims to have built Asia's first digital banking platform for SMEs, startups, and freelancers, and has increased its customer base to 2.3 million customers in the last 12 months. And over the course of the next 1 year, they are targeting to disburse a loan book worth $1 billion through the new suite of products on the platform which it has launched.
So open seems like a really interesting business, right? I mean, we've often talked about how these neobanks are operating at the opportunity where the traditional banks are failing, and literally nobody has a good user experience with their banks, right? And you can name whoever it is among the top private banks that you bank with. The number of touch points are so much more when you run a business, right? I mean, and so some of these things can definitely be ironed out. Open seems really really smooth and slick and everything. They do have a few of these banking partners that they're working with, so yeah, they're offering everything, right? I mean, they have something like expense management, accounting, all of those things off the box, and direct payouts, separating various types of spends and everything. So it seems like banking for the future, I would say. And really there's just so much opportunity in this space, right? So which, yeah, I mean, which is why, I mean, there's such an interesting business. They will be the front end for some of these businesses, right? And the traditional banks will sort of power their lending and whatnot, and be the regulatory aspects of this. But these guys can become the front end for all of these businesses. I think it's no competition. Even if you just look at the website, it's like a night and day difference between some of these traditional banks and what open looks like, right? So yeah, I mean, that seems definitely very interesting, I would say.
We have spoken a lot about Byju's and their acquisitions, and right now, and last week, Kota-based coaching institute, Allen Career Institute, secured the largest venture capital check from the week. Bodhi Tree Systems, which is led by James Murdoch and Uday Shankar, bought a strategic stake worth $600 million in the company. Now, majority of this investment will go into strengthening its edtech, followed by the expansion of online centers both in India and overseas. This is very similar to what we see Byju's do with by acquiring Akash. But Bodhi System Trees is a newly formed platform between Looper Systems founder and CEO James Murdoch, who also happens to be the son of media baron Rupert Murdoch, and Uday Shankar, who is the former president of the Walt Disney Company Asia Pacific and former chairman of Star and Disney India. Now, this will seriously pose some big challenges, or at least competition, to market leaders like Byju's and Academy. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, the offline guys are going online, the online guys are going offline. I mean, this is it's bound to happen, right? Because so much of the market is still up for the taking. Education itself is $100 billion market. Online education is less than 5%, but pretty much everyone kind of recognizes that it's the present and the future, right? That is how we're going to reach the masses of the country. We're going to have the largest educatable population very soon. We're going to have about 500 million people or more in that 5 to 24 years of age. And this is an industry, this is a domain which can have multiple decacons, not just unicorns, right? And we're still talking about India as a domestic market. So Byju's, we saw had a partnership with Qatar, for example, right? Ministry of Qatar and so on. So what happens when some of these folks start looking outside of India? I mean, it's going to add multiple tens of billions of dollars to their market cap, I would say, right? So So yeah, I mean, definitely interesting, and you will see a lot more money coming into edtech for sure.
Okay, moving on to other major headlines from the week. GIC will lead a $200 million funding round that will value Dreamplug Technologies Private Limited, the parent company of Cred, at more than $6.5 billion. Zepto has raised a $200 million funding round at a $900 million valuation, led by Y Combinator's Continuity along with new investors Kaiser Permanent. SaaS monetization startup Topline raised $15 million in a funding round led by Tiger Global and Sequoia Capital India. Now, in one of the interviews, Topline co-founder Ruchin Kulkarni brought up a really interesting point where he acknowledged that right, this is the perfect time for a monetization software. SaaS company multiples are at an all-time low, and funding markets are drying up. And for product-led growth, SaaS companies need to free up their users to convert them into paid plans, and that's where Topline comes in. Now, this is a really interesting comment. I mean, of course, with the lockdown, we see people adopt all of these, subscription based services, and many of them through freemium models. And currently, with the things which you're seeing in the ecosystem, what do you make of this?
No, for sure. So, a couple of very interesting fundraisers. Let me start with Topline. Topline seems like a super interesting business. I mean, they're helping some of these product-led growth companies monetize their users, right? Especially relevant when you have like a freemium plan, like let's say Slack or Canva or Zoom, even, right? I mean, it's a very big problem for a sales team to understand or a marketing team to understand, which are those users you need to push for monetization and when, right? And so Topline sits on top of something like an Amplitude or a Mixpanel and studies intent, right? I mean, they look at intent and they're able to use data science to understand when you have to trigger an offer and so on, and they've been able to do phenomenally well. So I was looking at some of the case studies. They've been able to increase revenue by around 8-10% for some of the brands, including InVideo, who we had, Sanket, we had him on the podcast earlier. So definitely very interesting. Also, I mean, the founders have, an interesting background as well. Ruchin was formerly with Sequoia, part of the investing team. So yeah, I mean, we should definitely try to have him on the podcast sometime. Well, with Zepto, I have spoken plenty. I'm a big fan of this whole quick commerce phenomena that's happening, because it's way larger than what people think it is, right? I mean, groceries are a very, very tricky use case. Really, what you're trying to validate is last mile delivery in India, right? And that's a huge challenge traditionally in India. So yeah, they're gonna obviously raise a lot more money, right? Because the market is huge, and also they're spending to learn a few things, shift the consumer mindset. Although, I mean, I feel if you look at the current consumer mindset, right? I mean, we have changed quite a lot since our parents' time, right? I would say we pay for convenience right now. That's not the case with our parents as much. We invest in a lot of small sized purchases, especially on grocery and stuff, right? So I mean, earlier I remember we used to do this grocery shopping once a month or maybe once a fortnight as such, where we'd go down to the local supermarket and buy stuff. A lot of things are unplanned purchases as well. I mean, with nuclear families and so on, right? So yeah, I mean, quick commerce as a phenomena is here to stay, right? And Zepto is sort of pioneering this. I mean, we've seen as a result of Zepto, how many people have kind of pivoted, right? I mean, Grofers changed to Blinkit, Swiggy and Dunzo, and all of them had to launch some kind of an instant service. It's also the way for these folks to make that order value bigger, right? I mean, they can charge a premium for something like this, right? For a 10-minute delivery. Apparently, the average delivery time is around 8 minutes 47 seconds. That's what they say. So yeah, very, very, very interesting. I mean, this whole grocery market will be divided into two different lanes, right? One will be the quick lane and the other will be the comprehensive lane. On the quick lane, you will have the likes of Zepto really do an 80-20 on all of the SKUs that you'll require, all the products that you'll require, and deliver it to you in 10 minutes or whatever. And on the comprehensive lane, you will have the big baskets, the Amazons of the world, where you can go and shop for whatever else you will require, right? So yeah, definitely very interesting for sure.
Yeah, even Zepto, I think, has become one of those companies which will witness the inception to IPO the fastest. They've posted an 800% growth quarter on quarter on revenue, while burn rate has also come down 5x on a per order basis. And if all goes well, so Zepto might just file for an IPO in the next 2 to 3 years. So David Sachs recently put out a very interesting tweet, and to quote that, startups with high growth and moderate burn will get funded through the downturn, and startups with moderate growth and high burn will not get funded through the downturn. Can you help simplify this for us?
Yeah, so David Sachs is the OG, right? Founder of Yammer, CEO of Zenefits, and also very prolific investor, SaaS investor especially. And among all of the doom and gloom threads that I saw on Twitter, I just really thought that this is very, very sagely advised, right? And as I was saying in the intro, right? I mean, it's time for founders to look at fundamentals again. One of the things that David talks about specifically is how burn is something that is not something that just happens, right? And it's something that you can actually control. So yeah, and he has a few definitions in terms of growth and what burn should be. High growth is 2 plus x year on year. Moderate growth is around 50% year on year. High burn is 2 3x burn multiple. Moderate burn is 1x burn multiple. So figure where you lie on this axis, and then relook every line item among these things that you can sort of fix. So I think that would be really helpful, I would say.
But again, this begs the question: what about companies with high burn, high growth? In which bucket would they fall into?
I think someone had asked David about this, right? And David says that, I mean, just to quote him, right? Very dangerous, probably unnecessarily so. Since you're growing revenue fast, you don't necessarily need to cut, but you should freeze or slow spending so that growth reduces burn. High burn then becomes moderate burn. Yeah, I mean, there's literally nothing much I can add to that, right? I mean, it's again very, very well articulated.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Roshan. So really interesting roundup with so many different things. We're seeing drone. We're seeing the online moving to offline, offline moving online, right? So it's just kind of excited for what else the month of May will have in store. But folks who tuned in, thank you so much for sticking with us till the end. Do leave us a comment below, as it really helps us understand on the various things that we can improve, or what you're enjoying, and what is it that you would like to have on the show. And for regular updates, do follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. Our handles are the Startup Operator on LinkedIn and Operator Startup on Twitter. And check the description, you'll find a WhatsApp link. If you subscribe to that, we're delivering bytes and updates from our side to you directly on your WhatsApp inbox. Yeah, that's all for this week. And Roshan and I will see you again next Sunday. Have a great week ahead.